So it is okay to be rude to yourself by crossing your own boundary every single time. And it's not okay to be so-called rude to the people who constantly ask you questions and don't pay. Beautiful lady, welcome to a new episode of the podcast for female leaders. And today I'm going to talk about boundaries. Yeah, something interesting happened. Yesterday I was hosting another mini training. I had around 15 attendees. By the way, in December 2024, so if you listen to this later, maybe it's not relevant anymore. 2024 December, I'm going to start doing my mini training in English. But if you're already interested in an English version of the mini training, and just please let me know. Send me a personal message through LinkedIn, Suzanne Veldkamp. So I either create a waiting list or maybe start even earlier. Okay. Mini training yesterday. Okay. A lady attended. She used to be a lawyer working at a firm, and since a year she started her own business. She started as being self-employed, and her situation was like this, because having a lawyer as a friend or in your network is very handy, right? If something happens, you just pop the question, she answered, you don't have to pay, you don't have to find yourself a lawyer or whatever is available. You just ask your friend, or your maybe not a close friend, but anyway, that's what happened to her. She gets a lot of questions from people around her, close, but also a few circles less close. And it started to get a bit annoying, because her paid customers, well, actual customers, a customer always pays, I believe, because then there is a transaction, right? With just thin air. There is no transaction, just a thank you. There is no transaction, no formal transaction. Anyway, she was kind of annoyed by the fact that so many people asked her questions, didn't pay, and meanwhile her income wasn't the greatest. And so her question in the mini training was like, okay, what? She didn't really ask a question. She just dropped the situation, and in her case, it was an annoying situation, an irritating situation. And so I started asking her questions. I said, so how does it happen? And what do you do? And what do you want to do? Of course, if you don't want something anymore, ask yourself, what do you want instead? I know it sounds very simple. It is that simple. And on the other side, it is not that simple, because once you're in that spiral of, okay, I don't want this anymore, don't want this anymore, don't want this anymore, it can be difficult to ask yourself, to pop the question, what do I want? Anyway, so I asked her, what do you want? So, and she answered quite quick. I did not have to ask her 5 questions to get the answer, which would also be fine, but and sometimes that is the case. She said, yeah, I don't want to give all my knowledge away for free anymore, and I don't want to be rude, And then I asked her another question, and you could say that's a rude question. I don't think it is, but so I asked her, so it is okay to be rude to yourself by crossing your own boundary every single time. And it's not okay to be so-called rude to the people who constantly ask you questions and don't pay, because they think it's normal. And it's not even them to blame, it's normal, right? Because she gives it. So people take it. If you give the space, people take the space. It's like with kids. If you give them, in Holland we have this saying, if you give them 1 finger, they take the whole freaking hand, or 2 hands, 10 fingers. And if you're not careful, they take your 10 toes as well. I speak of experience. Did you hear that? So it is okay to be rude to yourself. And it's not okay to be rude to others. And with that answer, she knew what she had to do. She knew what she had to do. She knew it already before. Only her judgment on, of course, there is so many different ways to tell somebody no, or to move towards the invoicing or whatever. There are millions of ways to do that. But if you have in your mind that you need to be rude, that rude is a condition to actually say no or to set a boundary, and you don't want to be rude, huh? Then out of the million options that you have, you won't be able to pick one because something is blocking. And that by just this free mini training, it stopped. I could see it. I could feel it. And the other attendees did the same. So, yeah, this is about self-care, self-worth, self-love. And I mean, for her, something needed to be irritating. Huh? The situation was irritating her. She was annoyed by it. And you could say, oh, that's really annoying that needs to happen. But it's not, because you always need a bit of contrast to figure out what for you your most comfortable or joyful way is. And for her was, she gave all the space to the people to keep on asking her. I don't know what questions you need to ask a lawyer constantly, but I guess she's more surrounded by people who need that. I am, of course, not, but of course, but I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't get any of those questions. But yeah, it's done what she needs to figure out. And now, of course, I'm talking about her, but of course, could be that you recognize a bit. I do. And what's the most important is that, yeah, it could always be that there is like an irritation, energy leak to discover what you don't want anymore. And that's fine. That's fine. Because it gives you the contrast to figure out, okay, this is what I don't want anymore. And at a certain point, from what you do not want anymore, you move to what do I want then? And if you have the answer to that question, yeah, then you can act. And then you can make things smoother for yourself until the next thing pops up. So I'm going to add one more thing, because there is one thing very important. Setting boundaries. It's a common thing that it's not always that easy. And the most important thing, if you recognize yourself in this situation, the most important thing to set your boundaries is to be aware of your boundaries. Without being aware of your boundaries, you cannot tell anybody else about them. Without knowing your own boundaries, you cannot protect them, share them, let people know, okay, I do this, and then it stops. So that's if you struggle setting your boundaries towards others, if you're very easy in saying yes, and you can be a very enthusiastic person, so it's like your natural behavior that you get enthusiastic and then say yes. But then if that is the case, then sleep one night. Tell the other person, okay, let me sleep one night, then I'll come back to you with the answer. So you give yourself time to think, okay, it might be fun, it might bring me joy, but I don't have the time. I wouldn't know how to fit this in. Okay, enough about boundaries. You know, if you believe setting your boundaries or sharing your boundaries with others is rude, then ask yourself the question, is it okay then to be rude to myself? And then you have your answer. Enjoy. Thank you for listening. And please let me know if you're interested in the mini training Position Yourself. Okay.